Welcome back to the Combo Show. We talk it is and how you feel. And the 2026 schedule for the Georgia Bulldogs has been released. Let's run through it real quick. See what we love about it. See what we hate about it. There's some things in here in this schedule that I'm extremely excited. Cannot wait to see. And some things with the schedule that I'm like, they are not the biggest fan of it. But either way, let's jump straight into it. So the Dogs get things started off at home on September 5th against Tennessee State. Not the biggest home opener that we've seen. They're not playing Clemson to kick things off this season. Look, the years of the SEC starting a season out against a big non-con Power 4 team is long gone. The SEC is moving to a 9-conference game schedule, so we're probably going to see less and less of these big non-con games. We're probably going to see a lot less of Georgia versus Clemson, Alabama versus FSU. I hate it. I think it's dumb. I love those games. But with the way that the college football world is, we're probably going to see that a lot less. But nonetheless, the Dogs do get things kicked off at home against Tennessee State. That's the first game of the season. Then the Dogs are staying at home to take on Western Kentucky. Again, another Group of 5 team, not the biggest opponent, not the greatest competition, but still, hey, football is back, baby. At this time of the year, we'll take anything. Then the Dogs are going on the road. This is their first road game of the season to play Arkansas. Probably the best team in the SEC. If you had to start your conference play against any team on the road in the SEC, probably would take Arkansas. But nonetheless, that game is September 19th, taking on Arkansas. Then the Dogs are back home for consecutive weeks, taking on Oklahoma on the 26th. I believe this is the first time in history, that Oklahoma is playing in Athens. That is going to be a highly anticipated game, probably a primetime night game. Cannot wait for that Georgia-Oklahoma game in Athens. Then, like I said, back-to-back weeks at home. Their next game is Vandy. Going to be another highly anticipated game. But you're like, wait, Vandy? Vandy is shit. Going back 3, 4, 5 years, Vandy has been the doormat of the SEC. But these last 2 seasons, Vandy has exceeded expectations by tenfold. Honestly, Vandy probably should have been in the playoffs this season. It is what it is. That's a conversation for another video. But they are at home taking on Vandy, and this is another big game for a different reason. Recruitment. As we all know what happened this offseason, Georgia had a commitment from the number 1 quarterback in the class, Jared Curtis, out of Tennessee, out of Nashville. It seemed like he was committed to the Dogs for what seemed like forever. And then at the last moment, flipped his commitment. He decided to stay home, play for the Vols, anchor down. Look, can't blame the kid. He felt like he was going to get a better opportunity to start right away playing for Vandy. Then he would have got, going to play for the Dogs. And he's probably not wrong. If he were to come to Georgia, he probably would have sat for a year or 2 before he got the chance to start. But nonetheless, I think that's going to be a big game for that reason, especially if Jared Curtis is playing in that game and he's starting as quarterback for Vandy. I have a feeling the Dogs are keeping note of that defense, and they're going to show up. So, great 2 home games right there. Then the Dogs are going on the road again. Their second time leaving Athens. They're going to be taking on Alabama right there, October 10th. Another big game. I am so excited. Can Kirby Smart and these Dogs get consecutive wins against the Tide? We all know the story against Georgia. They can beat anyone not named Bama. We thought Kirby Smart had a Nick Saban problem. Nick Saban left, retired. Kalen DeBoer came in as a head coach of Alabama, and Georgia loses 2 in a row to him on the road and then at home in Athens. This season, at home in Athens, heartbreaking loss. I was fully convinced the Dogs were going to win. They lose very tough, basically a knife fight game there in Athens. They found another way to lose. Then, SEC championship game. The Dogs put belt to ass and put a whooping on the Tide, 28-7. My, oh my, what a game. The Dogs get their first win in Atlanta in the SEC Championship game against the Tide. Next year, 2026, can they put back-to-back wins against Alabama? We'll see. I am so excited for the game. Then, staying with the competition of Alabama, the Dogs are back home against Auburn. This is the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Absolutely love this rivalry game. This game used to be played at the end of the season. This was Georgia's third to last game of the season. But back in the day, Auburn decided to bitch, moan, and complain that it was too hard to play Georgia. And then Alabama was so close together. Auburn used to have to play Georgia, then a game. Usually the game in between was like a non-con group of 5 team, a cupcake team. Then they would play Alabama in the Iron Bowl. But, that was just too much for Auburn to take on. And they complained. They griped about it so much to where the SEC was like, yes, we'll switch it for you. So now the game is usually played, the Deep South's oldest rivalry is usually played in the beginning or the middle of the season. Look, I could go on and on about how I think that's so dumb. But either way, home game for Georgia taking on Auburn. That is before their bye week, before they play the Gators. The Georgia-Florida game, we all know it. The world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Halloween game. I absolutely love when this game is played on Halloween. It's just a different vibe around this game. Neutral site game, usually in Jacksonville. This next season, 2026, is actually going to be played here in Atlanta. The reason being is that, this game is played in Jacksonville. The Jaguar Stadium, their stadium is currently being renovated for the next 2 seasons. So this game is going to move still to a neutral site. First season here in Atlanta. Next season, I believe, down there in Tampa. Look, I am a firm believer that college football games should be played on college football campuses. But the Georgia-Florida game, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, is a rare breed. It's one of the few games left in any sports venue. I don't care where you go. I don't care if it's college football, professional football, hockey, baseball, basketball, soccer. It doesn't matter what sport you're talking about. Very rare do you see a game where you walk into the stadium and half the stadium is red and black and the other half is orange and blue. Split perfectly down the middle. You don't see that anymore. There's very few games like it left in college football. And I have lived in Jacksonville for a better part of 10, 12 years. This game should always be played in Jacksonville. I love the atmosphere. I love the environment. I love the split down the middle. It's so rare. It's so unique. It's one of the few that is left. Hate that this game is not being played in Jacksonville this season. I understand why, and I cannot wait for it to get back to Jacksonville. But nonetheless, they went on a tangent. I could talk about this game for days. October 31st, Halloween, the Georgia-Florida game. They're here in Atlanta. Then the Dogs are going back on the road on November 7th to take on Ole Miss. This is going to be another really good, tough road game for the Dogs. Obviously, we know what happened with Ole Miss here this season. Lane Kiffin left. He went on to LSU. They have their defensive coordinator there as the head coach. Very curious to see, one, how does Ole Miss do in this playoff this year, 2025, and what do they look like coming into 2026? Is Ole Miss going to be, at this point in the season, you're talking about you're a third way through your season. You've only got 3 to 4 games left. Is Ole Miss, what is their record going to look like? Are they still going to have a dog in the fight? Or is it going to be like, hey, they're 5-3, it is what it is? Either way, another good game for the Dogs. Then the Dogs come back home in Athens to take on Mizzou. Another game where I'm like, it is what it is. The reason being for this Mizzou game is that, no disrespect to Mizzou, I just don't feel like they're like the odd man out, Like, when I look at them, I don't think that they are an SEC team. I've always felt that way from the very second that they joined the conference up until now. I don't think of Mizzou as an SEC team, but nonetheless, that game is there on November 14th, and then they go back on the road on the 21st, November 21st, to take on the South Carolina Gamecocks. I absolutely love this rivalry. The Georgia-South Carolina rivalry. Look, we all know that the SEC is moving to 9 conference games, 3 annual opponents, and then they rotate the other 6. Georgia's annual opponent should always be Florida, Auburn, South Carolina. Always should be that. I absolutely love this rivalry. I hated that we didn't get this season. It felt weird not playing South Carolina this season. So glad that game is back. It is one of Georgia's annual rivalries. So glad that we get that game back, even though it is on the road, and that is a very tough place to play there in South Carolina, but cannot wait for that. And then, obviously, Georgia rounds things off. They finish off the regular season against Georgia Tech. It is a home game there in Athens for the Dogs. So that is the 2026 schedule for Georgia. Kind of taking some key takeaways from this. Also, the home games are going to be against Tennessee State, Western Kentucky, Oklahoma, Vandy, Auburn, Mizzou, and Georgia Tech. Not the greatest home slate. Obviously, you get the really good games against Oklahoma, Auburn, and then I think Vandy will be a good home game. I think Georgia Tech will be another really home game to round things off in the season. So not the greatest home slate that we've seen, but there's some really good matchups here that I absolutely like. Away games, and I think this is, you look at it, besides the neutral site game against Florida, this is very tough. So the away games for the Dogs in the 2026 schedule, they get Arkansas. I don't think that's going to be much of a competition, especially with a new head coach there. But then Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. Can Georgia find a way out of those 3 games? I guess 4 if you want to count Arkansas. Can Georgia find a way to go 3-1 in their away games in the 2026 season? I think if they're able to do that, you're probably looking at 11-1 dog team, Georgia Bulldog team going into the postseason with a clear path to the playoffs. And then this is the first time in 30-plus years that the Dogs are not playing Tennessee. They're not playing the Vols. I just got done saying how much I absolutely love the Georgia-South Carolina rivalry. If I had 4 rivalries for Georgia, the 4th would be Tennessee. I love the way that Josh Heupel has been able to come in and take the Tennessee Volunteers from the depths of the dumpster fire and bring where they are to now, because now the Georgia-Tennessee game is an actual rivalry game that I look forward to watching. So it kind of sucks that Georgia's not getting to play them this season. With everything changing, the college football landscape changing, it's not surprising. But it does kind of suck that this game is not being played for the first time in like 30-plus years. Obviously, I already talked about the back-to-back games against Alabama and Auburn. Can Georgia own the state of Alabama this next season? Would love to see that. Overall, I think this is a very manageable schedule for the Dogs. I don't see many places where the Dogs can get tripped up. Now, obviously, you're playing in the SEC. You can lose any given Saturday, no matter if you're in the SEC or even Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, it doesn't matter. I think the toughest stretch of games for Georgia is going to come before their bye week, is going to be on the road against Arkansas, at home against Oklahoma, then at home against Vandy, then away against Bama, and then back home against Auburn. If the Dogs can find a way to take that 5-game stretch and go 5-1, I think that's going to be their toughest stretch in this next season. So we'll see. I'm extremely excited. Cannot wait. Obviously, there's still a lot of football left to play here in the 2025 season, but I just wanted to get on here, talk about the 2026 schedule, talk about the things that I love, the things that I hate, the things that are, they are. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this schedule. Do you think the Dogs are going 11-1? Do you think they're going 8-4? Do you love it? Do you hate it? I'm personally right now going to say I think the Dogs will go 11-1. I think it's going to be tough for any team to go undefeated moving forward, especially in the SEC. So I'm taking the Dogs to go 11-1 in the 2026 season. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Other than that, over and out.